Hello, everyone. It's really great to be able to give it to our Torah for the Summer Daf Yomi group. This week's Parsha is Parshat Korach. I'm Kyle Seidel. I'm part of the Yoma Daf Yomi group. And I'm going to speak a little bit on the Parsha, looking at what happens within Korach's rebellion. One question that's classically asked is, how does Korach succeed in his rebellion? And how does he succeed in swaying Bnei Yisrael to support him? So we're going to take a look inside the Ramban. I'll share my screen over here. And we'll take a look at the Ramban, and hopefully we'll come out with an overall look on Sefer B'Midbar as a whole, and a takeaway message for all of us as we start this Daf Yomi program. We're a couple of weeks in now, heading into the summer. So we'll look what the Ramban says over here on the Parsha. The Ramban explains how Korah succeeded in swaying Bnei Yisrael by telling us that when Bnei Yisrael was in the Midbar at first, everyone supported Moshe. Why? The Ramban says over here that when it comes to the beginning of the sojournings in the Midbar, Bnei Yisrael, B'yotah, Midbar, Sinai, Lo Yira Lehem Shum Ra'a, nothing bad occurred to Bnei Yisrael when they were in the Midbar. Even when Bnei Yisrael suffered to the Chet Egel, and there was an aftermath of destruction, there were very few who died. And when Moshe prayed for Bnei Yisrael, and he fell before them for 40 days and 40 nights, Bnei Yisrael was saved, and Bnei Yisrael supported Moshe during this time period. The Ramban is making this point here that Bnei Yisrael supported Moshe, and they believed in him fully. And if anyone were to rebel against Moshe, the Ramban will tell us, Bnei Yisrael would support them and support Moshe against the rebellers. No one would have a chance of rebelling, as the Ramban says. They would stone someone who would object to Moshe, who would try to have a coup d'etat and try to overthrow Moshe. Up until this point, everyone accepted what Moshe had done and what the different leadership roles within Bnei Yisrael. However, here's where things change in Parshat Korach. When Bnei Yisrael started to die, and there was these punishments of the kibrot ta'ava when Bnei Yisrael asked for slav and they complained in Parshat Balotcha 2 weeks ago. Because last week, what happened there? They died, and Bnei Yisrael and Moshe did not necessarily daven for them to be saved fully. They were deserving of this punishment, and for this reason, when this occurred, when they'll die in the Midbar this generation. Only once Bnei Yisrael broke down these barriers of support, and they realized that they had been punished, and Moshe didn't necessarily save them fully. This allowance of them to be able to break down this barrier and to understand that maybe, there is room to complain and there is room to object to Moshe. And this is when Korach was able to take a hold of the nation and be able to drag them in. And that's why Bnei Yisrael was swayed, the Ramban claims. And that's why Korach had success, and the Bechorim, led by Dathan and Aviram, they had success in swaying the nation after the Chet HaMeraglim and after Kibbutz Ta'ava and Ba'alotcha and all these sins. That's when the Ramban is saying here, that's when Korach was able to have success. Now, perhaps we could look at an overall view of Sefer B'Midbar and see what's happened in the past 3 weeks of Parshiot and really try and get an overall message from this sort of narrative. If we look what happened in the middle of Parshat Balotcha, there's a famous 2-pasuk sequitur. And the next 2 pasukim, and the last pasuk there as well. This 2-pasuk segue over here is famously understood as by Chazal as something that's broken up and its own sefer sort of within Sefer B'Midbar. And if we look what happened immediately before this, what happened? The Ramban claims there as well that quoting the Midrash, the Bnei Yisrael ran away from Har Sinai. They were unified, they were one nation, and they ran away. They had this sense of unity, and that was the first sin. We have to separate the poranut, the punishment, from the beginning, from the punishment at the end, and what happens with them with Onanim in the next parak. Before then, though, Bnei Yisrael sinned as well. Their first sin was that small breakdown of that barrier of complete trust, of that complete unity they had at Har Sinai. By Har Sinai, Bnei Yisrael were Ka'amachad, Ki'ishachad, Kalev they were all together. And Vayisumi Har Hashem Derech Shosh Yamim, the Ramban writes there that Bnei Yisrael ran away. Derech HaTinok, that runs away from Beit Sefer, that joyfully runs away. In a sense, Bnei Yisrael did not keep this unity. And that is what the Ramban is showing us what's happening in Parshat Korach. Bnei Yisrael, as they're traveling away, these small decisions, these small breakdowns of not fully trusting in God and not fully going with the plan of just following the Aron. All they'd have to do is follow the Aron to enter straight into Eretz Yisrael, and that's where Bnei Yisrael begins to fall a little bit. But this is an entire story within the Midbar. And the message for us, perhaps, is that Bnei Yisrael, they had to go from a sort of nation, as Rav Menachem Leibtag of the Gush likes to say. Bnei Yisrael, at first, were a vision of a nation, and then they had to become a nation with a vision. Meaning that they were just a vision of a nation. They weren't fully at the point of realization. They had unity, though they needed to go through these sojournings and to see if they would succeed. These were all tests in a sense. They could have entered straight into Bnei Yisrael, into Eretz Yisrael, as one unit, as one nation, one unit. But now that they were in the Midbar and they had these punishments, the question was, would they succeed? And that's what happens in Parshat Korach. Bnei Yisrael puts the test once again. More things are starting to break down. They faced sin. They faced punishment. And now, when there are rebellers, will Bnei Yisrael be swayed? Unfortunately, Bnei Yisrael is swayed. Though we know famously that after this, things start to turn for the good. And the rest of the Parshat Korach focuses on the placement and different roles of the Leviim and how they will be able to gain kapara through bringing the Ketoret. And when we head into the summer now, it's important for us all to really look at these small decisions, not only in the summer, but everyday life. And I think that an answer is having a summer Daf Yomi group, learning these Masechtot that aren't learned so often, and giving chaburas is a way for us to handle these days and to be able to power through, in a sense, to be able to take these messages with us. And if we look at what the Ramban is saying here, it's an important idea that is something that really brings us all together and allows us not only to come together for this Daf Yomi chaburas, but hopefully to continue learning and to continue growing through this process. Thank you all for giving the opportunity to give this Dvar Torah. Wishing good Shabbos to everyone. Shabbat Shalom. U'Mevorach.